So we find Tyrion 9 begins with Tyrion lamenting the fact that once again they are staying at the inn at the crossroads. And we find that not only has Jaime been taken captive after the events of the Whispering Wood, but also that Riverrun has been reclaimed by Robb's forces, leading Sir Harris Swift to moan this fact and shame Jaime, which Tyrion takes umbrage at as he believes Swift to be a shameless lickspittle, and his greatest accomplishment was marrying his daughter to Kevin Lannister in order to marry himself into their family for power and wealth. And so it is revealed that as Mark Piper had been raiding their supply trades, the garrison at Riverrun had to be split into three factions as is necessary to take the castle due to the way it is designed. And we find that Jaime went out one night to deal with the raiders before he was lured into the ambush, and then following that, the Stark host marched south and mopped up the three camps. It is revealed that Sir Fleming Brax, who is present at the hearing, is now learning of the death of his father, Lord Brax, as he tried to raft across the river to help one of the other encampments. However, this pulled him downstream, and then he was set upon by the catapults on the walls of Riverrun, forcing him into the water where he drowned because he was wearing armour. It is revealed that the further the camps to the south was led by Lord Lefford, who picked up his troops and marched south upon seeing the battle running against his favour. However, it is noted that a Tyroshi sellsword, who led his free riders, decided to turn over their forces to the enemy upon the defeat. Now, Lord Swift continues to bemoan this defeat at Riverrun, as now their army has actually been cut off from their supply lines, and they are now cut off from the west in Castle Rock, which Robb can now march on at any time if he feels the need to. He laments that they must sue for peace. However, Tyrion points out that there is no chance of that given the actions that Joffrey has taken. Tired of the constant bickering, Tywin orders everyone out apart from Tyrion and Kevin. And Tywin now reveals to them that in the past fortnight it has been relayed to him via Varys. Renly has married Marjorie at Highgarden, and the Tyrells have sworn their swords to him as the king of the realm. Now, Cersei has not told Joffrey yet of this, as she fears Joffrey will try to raise his own army and go out to face Renly to show off. And Tywin rues this as well, as he notes that if Joffrey were to muster the City Watch and march against Renly, he would leave King's Landing completely undefended for Stannis to swoop in and take. And it's interesting to note here that despite the fact that to all factions involved Stannis appears to be the biggest threat, he has apparently still done nothing to move against the throne. And from what Tywin has gathered from Varys and his whispers, the stories are that Stannis is building ships and hiring sellswords, and that he is also bringing a Shadowbinder from Asshai, implying that Melisandre is currently on her way to Dragonstone but has not yet arrived. Tywin pulls out the map and they go over the state of affairs regarding the war so far, and we find that Roose Bolton is to their north, and the north both hold the Twins and Moat Cailin, and Robb now sits to their west, so they cannot retreat to Lannisport unless they want to have battle. Jaime and his army have basically ceased to exist as players on the field, and Thoros of Myr and Beric Dondarrion continue to attack their foraging parties. To the east they have the Arryns, who could be a threat if they choose to stir themselves. Stannis sits on Dragonstone, and in the south, Highgarden and Storm's End are united together under Renly, calling their banners. Now to this, Tyrion mocks him by saying, "Take heart, father, at least Rhaegar Targaryen is still dead," which, given the amount of times in the story that they bring up the fact that Rhaegar is either dead or supposedly raised from the dead, which could be inferred here by the context of the conversation, it does beg the question as to whether this is George hinting at something. Kevin realises that if they linger much longer they will be caught between three armies, and so Tywin reveals that their plan is to head down to take Harrenhal. Tywin then instructs that they send Sir Gregor, Vargo Hoat, and Amory Lorch ahead of them to raid and pillage, and to burn the Riverlands from the God's Eye to the Red Fork. Now Tyrion is instructed to hand his hill folk over to Virgo Hoat in order to aid in the pillaging, and Tyrion commented that he would much rather keep them with him. However, Tywin says that he would have to then teach them manners, as he is expected to ride south for King's Landing, as it is Tywin's wish that Tyrion be sent to the capital in order to keep Joffrey in check to prevent him from ruining everything. And also to keep an eye on the council, as Tywin points out, they are no allies to have, given that they are allowing Joffrey this course of action that he is taking, and questions to himself what sort of notion was put into Joffrey's head to make Janos Slynt a lord, giving him Harrenhal of all places, which was the seat of kings, which may explain why they are now taking Harrenhal as their base of operations out of spite. He also ruse the fact that Barristan was dismissed from the Kingsguard, which should never have happened, as Barristan was a renowned knight. He lended credency to Joffrey's rule, and so by dismissing him, they have basically caused scandal upon their king. And given that this appears to have been Cersei's idea, Tywin then notes to Tyrion that if Cersei cannot curb the boy, then Tyrion must do it, and instructs him to sniff out if these councillors are plotting against the king. Now, Tywin is questioned by Tyrion on why he is sending him of all people, and Tyrion seems to think that it is because Tywin has no other son, and so he has to keep Tyrion safe, but also is now accepting him because he has no choice, because he is most likely not going to be able to get Jaime back in the current situation, which angers Tyrion and makes him want to hurt Tywin, but yet he covers this up and continues to listen. Tywin then goes on to note that if Tyrion is going to court, he is not allowed to take his whore with him. Now, this is interesting, as how does Tywin know about Shae, unless he's obviously keeping tabs on Tyrion, as he wouldn't necessarily need to know that Tyrion has a whore around. But I strongly believe that since Tyrion got to Tywin's camp, Bronn now serves Tywin, as Tywin can offer him a better deal, and we have seen so far in the story that Bronn will always take the better deal. He is very quick to change his allegiances and is most likely spying on Tyrion for Tywin, and he was even the one that got Shae for him, and the story doesn't add up because Bronn told Tyrion one story, whereas Shae told him a completely different one about how she was acquired, and Tyrion did not realise this. And despite Tywin's very vocal admonishing of the fact he did not want Shae to go to King's Landing with Tyrion, Tyrion then decides to tell her that he is planning to take her with him.